Hello and welcome to another episode of egomonk Presence Leading with Women. Joining us today is Veena Sethuraman. She leads learning and development at InMobi, where she works with different stakeholders to help them identify problems and unlock opportunities in their business landscape. She's passionate about enabling others so that they can consistently show up as their best selves. Hello Veena, and thank you so much for joining us today. Just to start us off with, you are a development leader. So, how do you approach personalizing the learning journey?
Very interesting question because I have thought about it many times. Whenever we talk about personalized journey, immediately the image that comes to our mind is we are sitting with every person to personalize the experience for them. But in the current context, where we are looking at making these learnings happen in every organization in a deeper way, and we are not anymore just sticking to the skills level, we are also looking at the mindset, beliefs, and all that. The only way to make this personalized journey possible is by understanding the learner very well, helping them understand what do they need, what do they deeply care about, and hence what is stopping them from achieving that, and hence what is the skill they need to build, what is the mindset that will help them make it easier as they go about their journey. The more we bring this clarity, build this clarity in our learner, the more learner will be able to learn. So the core objective here is for us to spend time, effort in building that clarity in our learner. And the more we are able to do that, irrespective of how many various platforms we are providing, learner will be psychologically ready to consume it according to their context and their need. And hence, I spend a lot of time in understanding the learner requirements and helping them articulate that requirement for themselves. Post that, from a solution point, it just becomes easier because they are fully ready to consume that learning. So this is how I look at personalized learning. Um, Rahi.
So, you did talk about certain requirements and you have a schematic in mind that this has to be done first and then this and then this.
Yeah.
So, what is your go to strategy when you design interventions?
Sure. So here, as I said, the primary part is to start with learner. So it has to be a learner-centric, ecosystem rather than us creating an ecosystem and then expecting the learner to deal with it, right? So it has to be the other way around. So the moment we make it learner-centric, what do I mean by that? One, to be able to understand the learning requirements in a much deeper way, having those conversations with all levels. So at a exit level, exit leadership level, probably this would happen in a one-on-one setup because for each leader, their context could be different, their landscape could be different, the life stage of their own team and what they are doing in terms of the business could be different. And hence, we need to make those one-on-one conversations happen. As we go to the CXO level, we might have to really look at what is required for each leader, and we can start putting them in cohorts and understanding the learning requirements accordingly. For example, there could be three leaders who are dealing with inherited teams, and there could be three leaders who are building the team from the scratch. So they are organically, already part of two cohorts, and accordingly, I will try to understand their learning requirements. So there will be a generalized part of that cohort. There will also be individual learning requirements, and that's where we really look at the personalized bit. Then, as we go further down the pyramid, it is really about understanding their requirements through a scaling mechanism. It could be through forms, it could be through surveys, it could be through focus group discussions, and these aspects understanding their learning requirements. And when I go for those conversations, I do not ask questions like, what are the three learnings that you want to pick up? Because for me, it sounds very transactional. Hence, I definitely avoid these kind of questions. I ask them questions around, in the last 6 months, what has been the best experience for them? What has been one of the, worst experience in the last 6 months? What is that one feedback they have got repeatedly that they would like to work on? If they were to work on that, what would be different in their life? So I'm really trying to understand their life and the skill building and the mindset building or functional or technical building in them would just make their life easier, and that's a core part of the intent here. So this is how I go about it. This is non-negotiable as a conversation for me, as part of the way I approach it. And then, of course, I move to the other aspects of building the calendar plan, coming up with an entire yearly calendar, execute that with my team. So those are conventional ways of learning and development, but this is something that I do differently.
So you try to approach it with empathy rather than just looking at it at, as you said, in a transactional lens. You did
Absolutely.
also you also did speak a lot about different leaders and different requirements. So if we talk about leadership, how do high performing organizations actually accelerate executive leadership?
So for me, high performance is equivalent to having a psychologically safety environment. So everybody, let's look at it this way: everybody wants to succeed. Everybody wants to do something meaningful in their life. They want to create positive impact, and they want to be happy. If this is the basic requirement that everybody carries, what would really help them bring out their true self? To talk about what is working for them, what is not working for them, and hence what needs to be improved. This particular ability to articulate and put a voice to their own experience is extremely important as part of building a high performance environment. And as part of this, the prerequisite is psychological safety. So when I say psychological safety, I am aware that this is a buzzword in the entire industry right now. But many times I've realized people use it as a buzzword without internalizing it, because the idea is to really look at it in layers and understand what would it mean to hold the space in that way while giving psychological safety, because it would mean creating healthy conflicts. It would mean calling a spade. It would mean holding the mirror for each other in a very nurturing yet tough way, giving positive and negative feedback in a very direct way, being able to agree and disagree, and sometimes agree to disagree wherever required in a very comfortable way. In order to make all these happen, it's extremely important to create that environment where people can just bring their voices without fearing about the impact or a consequence, a negative consequence. And the more we provide such a platform for people, the more they will be able to look at themselves in a very authentic way, and they'll be able to build themselves and access their own maximum versions, because they are constantly being challenged and given feedback, and that is done with a lot of care and connection. And that's the only way to go about for us to create a high performance organization.
So you are talking essentially about safe spaces where all voices should be heard. But then
Yes.
how diverse are these voices, especially when you go higher on the rungs of leadership? How inclusive do you think? What is the percentage of inclusion the higher you go?
Sure. Good question. And as you're asking this, I remember an event that I attended 10 years back. I was invited as a speaker for on International Women's Day, and as just before my speech, somebody from an elite institute in India was presenting this lack of diversity in the senior most leadership. And as I'm answering to you right now, I'm wondering what has really changed in the last 10 years. Because as I go up the ladder, I see very few diversity. In terms of, we could look at multiple aspects and nuances here, but even then, the diversity is very less. And for me, because there is lack of diversity already, there is no question of inclusion there. Because inclusion happens when diversity really exists. Here, there is diversity is not even there as we go up the ladder, and hence there is no question about inclusion here. But for me, inclusion is common sense. Irrespective of what level we are in, irrespective of what kind of diversity that we are experiencing in every layer, are we really ensuring that everybody has a seat on the table? Are we really listening to all those voices on the seat on the table? That's extremely important. My biggest wish is women are becoming unapologetic when it comes to investing on themselves, because that's the only way they can learn how to claim their space as they go up the ladder.
So you are saying that women at the foremost have to stand up for the rights and have to put themselves first. But then women take up a part of diversity. While we're looking at women, what are the other layers of diversity that you have an insight on?
Thank you for bringing that up because my next point would have been exactly this, as well. Because we many times, when we work with organizations, we see that diversity is just limited to gender, and we just have polarized way of defining it of man and woman, which is so unfortunate. So for me, the previous question was just about talking about the challenges that I see in the middle layer when it comes to women leadership. But definitely, diversity is not at all limited to polarized gender. It has to go beyond that. And that is again commonsensical. Whether it is from a sexual orientation point, differently abled aspects, or it could be from a race, ethnicity, from geography point, all these could have a strong part to play in the diversity aspect. In India, so far, my sense is we have a long way to go to really talk about this compared to, let's say, other organizations that I have experienced in other countries. In India, we still are limited with these two polarized way of talking about it. While people have started talking about differently abled employees and sexual orientation, we have really long way to go for people to internalize what does this really mean for us to create a space of psychological safety and inclusion for people across different layers.
No, I think this reminds me of. So, we did a series, Square 20, and one of the main themes of that, and one of the main things which all the leaders kept saying is we have to learn how to pass the mic, we have to learn how to widen the scope of conversation, as you just said. If we move on to providing them support, providing them safe spaces, how do you approach multidimensional allyship in organizations?
Informally, what I've done is one to amplify the voice of different communities, especially LGBTIQ community, because I work closely with it, and to not run away from tough conversations, whether it is with friends, with family, with my own society, with my colleagues, irrespective of what could be the setup, to be able to bring that voice all the time and to always consider that as a priority on an ongoing basis. That's something that I have done as part of creating allyship, because the more we bring these dialogues, the more people realize that okay, they are blindfolded when it comes to certain aspects of these community. They are ignorant about certain facts, and we are building the knowledge and understanding about how these things work among the larger community. So the idea is to really start helping people to realize that it is important to it is better to have a open mind with curiosity than having a closed mind because of a strong belief. And that's something that I continue to do as a role informally everywhere.
Um, Moving on to talking about something which has disrupted lives across the globe. You are part of an organization. I'm sure your organization was also impacted in certain ways due to COVID 19. But as a leader in the HR space, what are you seeing? What has 2020 done as a disruptor for HR strategies?
Okay, so for me, when I look at HR strategy purely from a disruption point in 2020, um, the statement that comes to my mind is of my organization CEOs. In one of the all hands, he spoke about this, that in this unprecedented phase, surviving is winning, right? And that in itself, to internalize it, it would take time for all of us because we are so used to having some parameters for success and being rigid about defining it. But sometimes even surviving can be winning. And that has been the biggest, I would say, disruptor in 2020. Purely from an HR strategy point, I would say to be able to really believe that every employee is going to bring their best, irrespective of where they are going to work from. I think that's the primary, change that I've seen across the organizations. Another biggest disruptor that I see is now people are more conscious about where do they really want to spend time on, because when people are always sitting at home, they are getting more questions in their mind in terms of, am I spending the time in the right way? Is there something that I can do better in order to be more effective? And I think this particular radical self inquiry has started helping people to zoom in and zoom out in a very effective way rather than drifting. So I am seeing more people taking charge of how they would want to spend time. In fact, more than ever, I see more people going through certification, more people going, coming forward asking for L&D sessions. I ideally wouldn't have expected this to happen in this kind of a scenario, but guess what? That's the opportunity this pandemic is offering us.
So you have sort of put a kind of positive twist to the pandemic, and it's really uplifting to see how this has given people time to introspect and actually ask, as you said, inquire about their own selves and actually reconsider how they're spending the time and what they would want to do. Um, in the same context, what are some major market forces or trends that you can foresee in the HR field?
Okay, so you're asking this question to a wrong person because I generally am an intuitive leader and I really do not look at 5 years down the line what would be the market looking like or what would HR space look like. I really don't go with that because I see myself as a one enabler. So as an enabler, I need to work with the here and now context. So when I see a here and now context, I really look at it as what is really happening now, what is really happening now in a way which is helping the person or the helping the organization, what is happening right now which is not helping, and hence how could that be different. That is the way I move forward rather than having a trend in mind and going along with it. So this has really helped me as a leader as well because I'm very intuitive. I also check immediately whether my intuition is taking me to the right space as I move forward. And hence, failing earlier to succeed sooner is extremely important as an intuitive leader. So the moment I pick up, some strategy based on my intuition, I go and talk to 10 people to get my thoughts validated or rejected. This gives me a sense of, what are the points that I need to go about and what are the points that I need to let go of. So I don't get emotionally attached to my strategies. I get it validated and rejected. At the same time, irrespective of the rejections, if I feel that I need to go ahead with something, I go ahead with it by making it as an informed choice to say, yes, there is a high chance of me to fail, but it's okay for me to fail here and I'll still go ahead. So that even when I'm failing, I'm not, falling. That's the way that's the way I really look at it. So I don't really look at the trend. I just go with the here and now context and make that better along with the leaders as I go forward.